guys, Mustached here to review the series, The Amazing Digital Circus. Now, I had recorded an entire video beforehand, at the day of release for this series, and I'm glad I actually deleted that, because ever since then, I've seen even more videos pop up saying how this series is bad, worthless, not good. Oh boy, we have a lot to get through. So, The Amazing Digital Circus is an indie show created by Goosworks, featuring the misadventures of Pomni, Jax, Ragatha, Zubul, Gangle, Kinger, and the AI known as Kane. And those misadventures range from uber horror at a museum to a burger joint to the craziness that is breaking that AI out of one of these locations and seeing the punishment of that beforehand, and so much more in between. And I think this is interesting, because at first, I was originally, in my first video, was saying that Jax was the litmus test. I need to readjust that sentence to say, I think this entire show is the litmus test for reviewers. Because I've already seen the handful of what I've already just talked about, and I'm willing to wager, and I've already seen one of these reviews, so I already know one is guilty of not seeing this as a character-driven show. So I'm willing to wager that the rest of those reviews, even without having to watch a single one of them, is gonna recognize that this is a character-driven show, not a plot-driven show. And that is vital. Because once upon a time, I too thought that this was a plot-driven show. And I think that came about probably the same time around when Pomni was trying to escape the digital circus. I think when that part lands, people's brains put on the litmus test for them. They think that that's the core of the entire show from moving forward. However, you will notice that that is dropped almost immediately until the very end. And what the new representation of what they even are is now at the core, because it's a character-driven show first. That's why. So it becomes quite clear to me that everybody else is reviewing this show wrong. They're reviewing it as if it needed to be a plot-driven show. And not every show needs to be a plot-driven show. The character work is at the forefront, always has been, and now is, at the very end. And just to cut back to Jax being the litmus test, to describe what I meant by that, I think that's even more interesting in that I was thinking about it, and this didn't even come across in my first review. It reminds me of Undertale. Specifically, spoiler alerts for Undertale, if you haven't played it, Azrael Dreamer. The only distinction between the two is a few and far between, but Azrael is younger, and he is portrayed as the little nice boy, or little monster, but still, you know. But he's the crybaby that just wants everything to be nice. And Jax, and by comparison, is slightly older, and he's a big asshole to everybody. He's pushing everybody away due to his own trauma. They are different. And the litmus test goes as such. How responsible is Jax for abstracting other people? Because I think that test is fascinating to me. Because I'm going to say, for each of them, or the ones that he's connected to, 10%. Oh yeah, you heard that number correctly. Not even 90. 10, the other number. Because his abstraction, then, doesn't make any sense. His abstraction, we would know, is self-inflicted. And it's the furthest we see, outside of it, we jumping to that abstraction, that's the case. That it's self-inflicted. So why would then something self-inflicted flip for when it comes to the other two characters? Why would they suddenly become Jax's problem, or something Jax caused? That, to me, doesn't make any sense. And it's because it doesn't. Because people who are blaming Jax for the other two failed the litmus test. They failed it. They failed to recognize what was happening. For Ribbit, her problem is that she couldn't see a world without a friend in Jax. She couldn't just say, yeah, we're not friends, and we'll just hang out with somebody else. She couldn't do it. That's on her, believe it or not. So, yeah, that's simple. That makes a lot of sense, and that fits the self-infliction. For Kaufmo, we should already also know this one. It's because he wanted to leave the circus so badly. And he is even the one who says, we weren't friends. Kaufmo brings that up. Interesting that gets reversed on Jax somehow. That also doesn't make any sense. That was Kaufmo being an asshole. Don't get it twisted. That was self-inflicted. They failed the litmus test if they abruptly blame Jax. And Jax's one, we also see in the final episode. Self-inflicted. Simple. Straightforward. Pay attention to writing, please. Because I kept hearing that this show has bad writing, but then I keep seeing these people not pay attention to the writing. They just make other conclusions that don't make any sense. Because they're not paying attention to the writing. They're treating it as if it's almost a completely different thing. Again, back to what I was alluding to before. But, on a more core value note, Pomni is just the sweetest of beings that arrives here. She is so driven to fix Jax. She goes above and beyond what most normal people, I think, would do, quite frankly. And that shows through people's reviews, on YouTube especially, though. So, yeah. The world definitely could use, and YouTube specifically, She is a YouTuber, but the world could use with some more Pomnis on YouTube. I don't even think there's one of them on YouTube. Or if there are, they're extremely rare. Extremely rare. Hell, me just existing as I am, I would say I even struggle to be on that Pomni level. But yeah, it is what it is. It's a revelation, if anything. So Pomni's niceness leads her to go into the abstraction. And that does lead to the biggest question that the show puts forth. And it's never probably going to answer because it's over. Is, could these characters have been saved from abstraction? Or can they still be saved from abstraction, rather, at this point? And the answer is, maybe. We will never know, likely. But the answer is not no. If it wasn't no, then I don't think Pomni would have been successful in even doing what she did in that episode. It doesn't make sense that she was able to just enter in. So, maybe the answer is entering in again and figuring out all this self-loathing nonsense that all these characters carry with themselves. Who knows? The thing about corrupted files is that sometimes, not always, but sometimes they can be restored. That's something that is quite unique about technology versus real life. So that is what opens up the window. The window isn't closed. And so, too, is what I find fascinating, is that Jax came to abstraction due to self-infliction, which makes it oh so interesting that Gangle is a character that doesn't abstract, despite how far fallen she seems pretty much in every episode. And I think that does come to something Zubul said at the final episode. She is somebody who has a lot more confidence stored within her than she's even realizing. And I think that it is that very self-confidence that kept her around. That's it. That's all it ever was for her. Outside of that, yeah, everything else, she would have been a goner, truly. But no, she had something Jax was missing, despite being somebody who seemed far fallen. And even Ragatha came close at one point way earlier in the season. I believe the one character we never see come close to abstraction is Zubul. Well, Kinger, but he's one among the creator side of things. But I digress. That seems to spell out that they also have a great deal of having that level of confidence, and even substantially even more so than other characters. And with that, I think that this show has proven that it truly is a fascinating litmus test, because I think this is a wonderful character-driven show, where the characters drive everything. They drive the little crazy misadventures, and when it comes time for the characters to see if they can escape or not, and realize that escape is seemingly impossible, then what it means is that they need to create or recreate this space to have meaning and purpose for them to thrive in. And it also means that, again, Kane's moments of seemingly coming back, that also brings back the idea of Kane coming back, that the abstractors can be fixed. Because he was deleted, remember everybody? So if he was deleted and then restored, then that must also be true of the abstractions. Again, I'm not sure why people are so gung-ho on, again, failing the litmus test and purely blaming Jax on those. And I want to bring Undertale back into the picture because I think that that really just shows something fascinating, is that Azrael Dreamer does something even way more absurd than Jax ever comes close to doing. Let me remind you of what that is. Azrael is so wanting the human to stay with them that they create a soul-sucking thing that is getting ready to genocide all of monster kind. That is how far Azrael, the nice little goat boy, ends up going. Almost genocide. Think about that. And yet I hear people saying that Jax is evil and irredeemable. Get the fuck out of here. That's not even close. Again, failing the litmus test. And so, I think this is a wonderful show. It was an indie show that really popped off and has opened the window. So thank you, Goosworks and Glitch combined, I guess, in this instance. I was always somebody, if you made it this far, who has always been jealous of shows like this because I want to be a voice actor. And whenever I see a show that is doing, I know is really, really good, your Has-Been Hotels, your Hell of a Boss, I will always say, damn, I wish I could have been on that show. And I say that to the amazing Digital Circus. Damn, I wish I could have been on that show. But I'm too small. I'm too unrecognizable. I'll probably never get that chance in my life, and I'll be miserable, like a worse off Gangle. Probably. But this show, to me, is an 8 out of 10. It's better than expected. I, for one, will not fail this litmus test, and will just say, this show, this character-driven show, I think that the creator can go on to make something just as equally wonderful. And if it's another character-driven show, I can't wait for more people to say that that one was also dog shit. And for me to come back and say, congratulations, you've managed to all fail the internet again, everybody. Or whoever is saying that the next project is dumb or dog shit or whatever. But I will always be there to be as objective as possible. To bring things back into perspective if things seem lost in this instance. 'Cause boy, I've seen some really dumb shit about this show. Anyway, if you ended up enjoying this actual review of the amazing Digital Circus, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure that you get those links in the description when I had you do my petition about small YouTubers, so get to my PayPal, you can help support me and my channel directly. And third, to my Discord server, you can join Collab, Chill, do all that cool stuff for free. And until next time, everybody, bye-bye.